Yeah, last class we were discussing foundations of planning. So if you recall from the last class, we discussed why is formal planning important. We also discussed where are the instances where we could use possibly informal planning. And if the organizations get really big and complex and their operations are widespread across the globe, then definitely a formal planning process would help. So we discussed that, and we also talked about what kind of plans are possible, the kind of hierarchy of plans that you might have. So it starts off with a mission statement, vision, having goals, which could be both strategic and financial objectives or goals. And these goals can also be short-term goals versus long-term goals. And goals must can be and should be smart goals. Basically, they should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So we discussed that as well last class. And then we spoke of something that's very, very important. We talked about strategies. Strategies are action plans of how we can reach those goals. So we discussed plenty of strategies, strategies that get us a greater number of customers, strategies that help organizations retain customers, strategies that help organizations consolidate their position, introduce new product lines, strategies that actually help organizations go into emerging markets or go for diversification. We also discussed possibilities of vertical integration, which includes both backward integration and forward integration. And we also discussed horizontal integration and plenty of offensive and defensive strategies, and what are the weapons that organizations have while dealing with competition. So why is planning important? It is definitely important because organizations want to move from their current position to a better position, whether it is in terms of technology, new product development, attracting new customers, or expanding their market base, keeping consolidating their market share, or maybe even having a growth rate, growth in their market share itself. So, for everything that you want to achieve as an organization, planning is an extremely important step. So, I'm just giving you a recap of chapter 5, which is foundations of planning. And plans are different types of plans, which I just now mentioned. It could be uh, just the statement of purpose, why the organizations exist, like mission, a vision which organizations wants to. I mean, they want to achieve something in the next 5 years or 10 years. That could be a vision. And as organizations achieve a 5 year vision, they could have another vision. And vision is something that the organization sees itself achieving in the next 5 years or 10 years. Where is it that we want to be as an organization? Now, we also discussed financial goals or objectives, which could be return on investment, return on capital employed, and if you're looking at profitability, controlling costs, and stuff like that. And then we also discussed plenty of strategic objectives. Say, you want to collaborate, you want to produce new products, do you want to invest in R&D, what kind of strategies you have moving forward. While financial goals are lagging indicators, strategic goals are leading indicators because it gives a sense of direction where the company is headed to in the future. So obviously, these are the type of goals that we have for organizations. And it means also that we need to have strategies to achieve these goals, both strategic objectives or goals or financial goals. These can be achieved by an action plan. So we have to look at the strengths, the weaknesses of an organization, look at ourselves and say, well, where are we having resources? How can we combine those resources, create new capabilities or competences that are distinctive and very unique, that are not easy to imitate by competition? And therefore, we use these competences to produce something that's of innovative value for customers. It could be products, it could be services, it could be both together. So we want to create value, get in customers. That means higher sales, greater revenues, and perhaps more profits if you're able to manage your operations efficiently. So that's the whole purpose of creating the planning process. And it's not necessary you have the best strategy to begin with. You might have a strategy that you think is going to work, the proactive elements. And then as you start rolling out your strategy and start implementing the strategy, You begin to realize your competitors are doing stuff which you need to tackle, and your environment is changing. It's all dynamic, like what happened with COVID and the pandemic right now. So you might have to go back and ask yourself, what are the reactive elements that we need to have in our strategy? Can we tweak some of those elements in the strategy itself? And then you have a deliberate strategy that you think is going to really work, and let you stay ahead of competition in a very dynamic and randomized environment itself. So we discussed all that. And today we're going to ask ourselves this question. We have goals, both strategic goals and financial goals. We have strategies, we have designed those strategies, and we think they will work. We have considered proactive elements. We have tried to factor in the reactive elements. We're looking at the business environment itself, the SWOT analysis. We did all of that. We took in data, we are analyzing the data, and then we come up with the best possible strategy that fit your strengths as a company. So once you have these plans and strategies in place, the next question is chapter 6. What kind of organizational structure do you require so that you can mobilize action? Who's going to do what? How do you categorize and classify tasks and activities into different categories based on, say, similarity of the tasks or activities, based on the skills required to perform certain tasks and activities? So you're looking at several possibilities of organizing work, allocating responsibilities, who is actually having the authority to give directions, to give, to allocate resources, to assign tasks and activities to be performed. And these tasks and activities that are to be performed are in coherence with the strategies that you have created, that we were discussing under chapter 5. So every organization needs to have some kind of organization structure and design to make sure that you have the right set of people working for you in right positions, and you know who is doing what. And because of several things like specialization, specific skill sets that are required by employees who are working on specific tasks and activities, they clearly know what you're doing, what each of us is doing, so that we are not like duplicating work, we are not getting confused, and we are not wasting our energies and time, and our effort is all directed towards achieving those financial goals and strategic goals that we were talking of in chapter 5. So I'm just trying to give you an introduction to how important organization structure is. So let's go back to the slides. These are the learning objectives for today. So we'll describe 6 key elements of organizational design. So what are the key characteristics that are very essential for understanding what is organizational design or organizational structure? We're also going to today identify the contingency factors that are in favor of, that actually sway us in favor of, say, a mechanistic model of an organization structure, or an organic model that might fit in our situation, and that might suit us in the type of environment that we operate in. And then the third learning objective is for today is compare and contrast traditional and contemporary organizational designs. There have been plenty of organizational designs that have been researched in the past. And so obviously we are looking at what kind of designs have existed before, and the kind of evolution that has happened because of the advent of technology. The way that we have managed better, organizations have become more efficient at managing work. So designs have evolved, and we have plenty of contemporary organizational designs that we will discuss today. The last learning objective for today is discuss the design challenges. Work is always evolving, organizations are evolving as technology evolves, skill sets evolve, and the way we organize ourselves at the workplace, that's evolving. And then we're dealing with plenty of other factors like cross-cultural teams, cross-functional teams, team kind of organization structure, boundaryless organizations, virtual organizations where people don't have to come to a physical location. They could be working from different time zones. So there are plenty of things that have happened in terms of flexible work hours, say job sharing, a lot of structural changes that are having their own advantages, and you might see certain disadvantages as we move forward. But these are possible challenges and they keep emerging. We are not in a state of being static. We are in a state of constant flux. We're always evolving. We need to know how to adapt to a situation that's emerging. And therefore, we will continue to face, when I say we, organizations will continue to face challenges. And it's important that we understand what are the current challenges, and then perhaps we are better prepared for challenges for tomorrow. So the first learning objective is looking at the six elements in organizational design. So we'll go to those elements. Whenever we speak about an organizational structure, I think the first most important thing that you're always going to address is work specialization. And suppose I'm teaching Management 102, Principles of Management course today, and I'm giving chapter 6. Suppose it was my first work assignment. I just finished my doctorate, and I've actually been awarded my PhD. And this is the first time I'm actually teaching the course itself. Perhaps I'm going to, not be as fluent at it. I'm not certain what examples to talk in class. I might not be 100% sure of how to organize the material. I'm not 100% sure how to assess the feedback that I get from students as I give this online lecture. So obviously, there's a learning process. But if I did it the second time, I get better. And if I did it the third time, and as years pass by, I've learned how to master the material, the content, the delivery, the pedagogy, the use of technology in delivering this course because I've become specialized. So work specialization makes sure that I'm making lesser number of mistakes. I'm more efficient. I'm actually serving my customers. In this case, it's you. I'm serving you better. So in that process, work specialization is extremely important. The more you actually begin to work and repeatedly, if you start working on that, you have a better chance that you can actually become better at that work. So work specialization is a key factor. Anybody who has done a job repetitively, continues to do the same task over and over again for many years, they become really good at it. They have a sense of expertise in that. They become proficient in those abilities, and that means they're faster, they're more efficient, they're quicker. Their work has a lesser number of errors and mistakes. So obviously, work specialization is a very important element of any organization structure. You don't want to throw people across in several functional areas and keep changing them rapidly because they're going to struggle to perform and perform to the best of their ability. You have to match people to jobs and to tasks and activities where they can be having a fair chance of succeeding and doing their best for the company. Departmentalization, I mean, if you look at any organization, small, big, for profit, for not for profit companies, you look at everything that you see around you. You have departments. Say for example, you might have marketing and sales as a department. So obviously, you're trying to specialize all those tasks that go under marketing. Anything that is pertaining to the four P's. Marketing has the four P's. You have product, price, place, and promotion. So any activity that speaks to, say, the product, elements that actually take feedback from customers, and then we pass it on back to the R&D department, where the design elements are taken care of. So you're looking at customer feedback, making sure product improvements are there in place. And the next time that you have a new product launch, it has better value, better features, better attributes. So the product elements are all under the marketing department. Then the pricing, obviously, you need to take care of how you price your products. They should be competitive. So what's the pricing strategy? Are you going to go for a skimming pricing strategy because your product is premium quality? You want to price it a little higher, or do you think you need to go for, say, market penetration pricing strategy, where you want to be extremely competitive and compare to pricing of your competitors' products? So what kind of pricing decisions have to be taken depends on plenty of research, plenty of data that you're collecting from the markets, and your analysis of competitors. So all the pricing decisions again go to the marketing department. And then you're talking about, say, place and promotion. How do you make the product available, in terms of wherever your customers are? So if you're serving customers, How do you get the distribution network in place? How do you deal with retailers or middlemen? And how do you ensure that your product is available and you're not getting out of stock, and making sure that every customer out there, whoever is interested in your product, has the opportunity to actually come in and purchase the product and maybe come back and repurchase the product if they like it. So obviously, the place, the function, that the four P's I spoke about: product, I spoke about pricing. The place is where you make it available, and then promotion. What kind of discounts would you give? What kind of extended warranty periods that you might offer to your customers? What kind of sales, special sales that you might have? Would you
The
bundle?
rescue team.
Excuse me. So, what is that question? So you might have to ask yourself this question: what kind of discounts, promotional offers, bundling offers? I mean, can you bundle two products together to sell them? If you buy an iPhone, would you get the AirPods free? Or would you get a deeper discount on the AirPods? Is that possible? So obviously, you might bundle products together. So that's a decision that the marketing department takes based on competition, based on what your competitors are doing. So you might keep changing those promotional offers. So basically, I spoke about product decisions, pricing decisions, place decisions, and also promotion decisions. All these come under the marketing department. Now, if you speak about something else, like say, how do you, raise funds? What kind of debt and equity ratios would you maintain? What kind of, capital that you would employ in the business itself? Would you want to put your money somewhere? So all these finance decisions would come under the finance department. If you're talking about where do you procure the raw material, what kind of technologies would you use in the manufacturing itself, and what kind of quality control measures would you have, and inspection facilities, packaging facilities, warehousing facilities, and then eventually the transportation of the finished product itself. You can put them all under the manufacturing or quality and manufacturing and quality control departments. So the idea of departmentalization simply speaks to the fact that you can combine certain set of activities and put them together because they are very related, and employees can relate to the skills that are really required to do that particular kind of activities. So departmentalization is a key element of any organizational structure. Then we're coming back to the next element of organization structure, which is authority and responsibility. If you look at how organizations are designed, basically you have somebody who is a manager, and then you have a manager who is supervising a team of employees. So every individual with a managerial responsibility has an authority to give directions, to take decisions, to allocate work, and make sure that work is organized properly. So they all have that sense of authority to influence course of behavior. They have an authority to influence outcomes, and how resources can be allocated, how work has to be divided. And that's what is authority. Responsibility: when say my supervisor or manager gives me a task, I have an obligation. I have an obligation to perform. And that's what we call in management jargon as responsibility. So every organization has individuals who have both authority and responsibility. It's not necessary that they have only authority. Every person who has an authority has a right to take decisions and has a right to allocate work or right to access to certain resources of the organization. But they also have an obligation. They're accountable. So basically, when they're making decisions, they will be held responsible. When they allocate resources, they are held responsible. They're held accountable that they're using these resources in optimal ways, in judicious ways, basically. So authority and responsibility is a huge element of importance whenever you discuss any kind of organization structure. Now, span of control is the number of people that a manager can actually supervise. So obviously, if I'm managing some simple tasks, if I'm managing a group of people who perform very simple tasks, where it's not complex, where the environment is very predictable, and we do same kind of repetitive work every day, perhaps I can manage say 15 people. because we do a simple task. Every worker under my supervision does the same task. It's repetitive, and there's no change whatsoever. So in that case, basically, my span of control can be, large. But if I have to deal with the employees who do different kinds of activities, and they do complex tasks, and they perform tough jobs, so obviously it's going to be hard for me as a manager to control and supervise and give a sense of direction to these people who are already doing complex set of tasks and activities. So my span of control cannot be too big. I can possibly control 3 4 people who are already doing a lot of work. And centralization versus decentralization, it's basically the level of authority that's vested in an individual who is capable of taking decisions. If one individual takes all the decisions, you call such an organization structure extremely centralized. But if that authority is delegated within the organization, that others can have also certain decision making power, that is when you say organizations are to an extent decentralized, because authority making power has been delegated. So my boss can give me some decision making power. He might not give me all the decision making power, but he can tell me, okay, you are in Abu Dhabi campus, you are the assistant dean, you are the dean's designee, you also have certain authority, you have some power of making decisions. So there is an element of decentralization. He's not going to, control everything that happens in Abu Dhabi campus or the China campus or Vancouver campus, because he's going to say, each of you as an assistant dean, you represent the school. Every campus has their own school of management assistant dean. They can take their own decisions as long as we serve the larger interest of our stakeholders, as long as we are aware that whatever we do has an impact on the kind of outcomes that we want to see the School of Management achieve. And as long as we know that we are doing everything in support of our mission statement, as long as we are doing everything that is in support of our strategic planning goals. So we look at what our goals are. We look at outcomes that our stakeholders are really interested in, and we also make sure that we are aligned to the mission statement and the campaign statement of the School of Management. And as long as we're doing that, we have the authority from our dean. So because he believes in the concept of a level of decentralization. So that's the difference between a very centralized structure where one individual makes all the decisions versus when you have multiple locations where you're operating as a company. You might choose to say, oh, okay, I'm going to give a level of authority or decision making power to several people across different locations or regions. And that's what we call as decentralization. Now, formalization is the level of standardization of a job. So whenever you speak about organization structure, say, suppose I'm talking about defining a worker's job, somebody who works on the shop floor, who's doing, say, welding or molding, or he's doing some kind of technical work or packaging or something like that. I mean, these are extremely, clearly defined jobs. So very standardized. There's no other way of doing a particular job. There is one specific way of doing it efficiently, in safe ways, in ways that are compliant. And so you can standardize the worker's job and say, you just do the simple task again and again. You actually set up the machine that you're operating, make ensure that you're complying with the safety norms. You do step one, step two, step three, and repeat step one, step two, step three. And eventually you want to make sure that you're producing the best quality possible. So such a job of a worker is very standardized because it's clearly defined. But if you go up in the organizational hierarchy, you will realize that basically you cannot standardize every job. The CEO's job, the chief executive officer's job, for example, cannot be standardized because you're not going to be able to predict 100% of the times what the CEO will be expected to do. Because he's perhaps playing the role of a spokesperson one day, he's playing the role of a disturbance handler some other day he's playing the role of a decision maker, some other days he's playing the role of a liaison. So he's playing several roles at the same time, maybe across the same day. So obviously you cannot standardize the job of the top level management, including the CEO's job. So whenever you cannot standardize the job, you say the extent or the degree of formalization is low. But if you go down to the workers level jobs where you can standardize everything and you can clearly define a job, you basically are going to say these jobs are high on formalization because they're clearly defined. So these are the six elements that one must have to keep while designing an organization structure. And by the way, your organization structure has to be sometimes revisited. You might have an organization structure that's currently working for you, but not necessarily it'll work for you in the future because technology integration can change what employees do and their jobs getting redesigned. Sometimes technology helps you combine certain jobs. So you might need a restructuring of your organizational structure itself. So that's a very possible outcome that you will see because technology and because of the nature of work and the skill sets that people have, and perhaps even the kind of products that we are producing, perhaps the kind of customers that we are serving. Everything is changing around us. So organization structures more or less likely got to be flexible, and if necessary, they have to be changed so that it serves the best interest of the organization. Again, the purpose of organization structure is to mobilize action, to create a sense of structured activity, and to know for sure who is responsible for what, who has the authority on whom, on what kind of activities and what kind of outcomes and what kind of resources. So basically structure is such an important thing that should follow planning process. So once you've planned for the company, once you created strategies, you have to look at what kind of organization structure will help you in the best possible way. So we'll go off to the next slide. Yeah. So when we spoke about the first element, specialization, look at this graph. If you look at work specialization on the x-axis, the level of specialization can be low and the level of specialization can be high. I was giving you an example of me teaching the course for the first time. Specialization is low. So my performance perhaps is going to be low. If I'm teaching a course for the first time, I might not be as efficient. I may not be as impactful. I could possibly not cover everything. And perhaps the impact that I'm creating on my students perhaps is low because I'm doing it for the first time. So my level of specialization is low. And that means my productivity possibly can be low. But as I continue to deliver the same course again and again, my level of work specialization is increasing, and obviously, it means my productivity is also going to increase. So by the time I have taught this for, say, 3 semesters, 4 semesters, maybe across 5 years, several times across several semesters, my productivity hits a high point. I'm really good at teaching management 1 or 2. I understand the principles really well. I give the appropriate examples. I go back to my students and help them understand the material, apply the material in real life situations, maybe integrate project works and help you do your projects. So my level of performance could be really going high as I continue to repeat myself and become more specialized in teaching a particular course. But it doesn't continue to increase. The productivity doesn't continue to increase all the time. After a certain period of time, the productivity can go down. Boredom can set in. Maybe my skill sets are not good enough, or I've not been able to research as actively, or I'm not able to integrate technologies as much. So, for several reasons, maybe after 10, 15, 20 years, the impact of my productivity perhaps again will start going down because human diseconomies can set in. That we might not be interested, we might feel bored, or we are not updated in terms of our skill sets. We're not able to really integrate technology, and maybe I'm not able to impress this current generation of students who are like much more active, hands-on, and perhaps you're not as visual and you're not basically listening and learning, but you want to do something and learn. So if I did not make it that way, my productivity will actually start going down, even if I'm teaching it for several years. And that can happen for teachers, that can happen for workers, that can happen for any kind of job. So specialization definitely increases productivity, but after a while, Specialization actually might actually bring the productivity down for several reasons. So we also spoke about the second element, which is departmentalization. How do you combine activities? I gave you the examples of production department, marketing department, and finance department. So you can have other types of departmentalization that I was referring to. One of the types of departmentalization can be based on the product itself. So here is a classical example. Like if you're dealing with women's footwear, I mean, you might want to, this is a different product line. So one department in your organization just focuses on design, procurement, marketing, selling, and supporting the business which is related to women's footwear. And if you're having another product line, we're still speaking about different types of products. So if you're having another product line like men's footwear, so you might have one department which, I mean, if you're selling in a lot of places and there is a huge demand for your kind of men's footwear, you have a different department which could possibly take care of that. And then apparel and accessories, you might have a different department that looks after that particular product. So departmentalization can be based on function, which, like I told you before, marketing, finance, and production, or it could be based on engineering, accounting, information systems, and HR. That's based on function. If it's based on product categories, it's called as product departmentalization. Again, you might have departmentalization based on customer. Suppose you have banks, you might have retail customers, you can have business customers, you can have industrial customers. So you might have different types of customers, and you might have departments taking care of each type of customers. So I'm sorry. So you can have customers who are based on their requirements, their necessity, the volume of business, the number of transactions that they make. Are they retail customers for a bank? Are they industrial business customers? What kind of customers are they? So and it can happen. Are they insurance customers? Are they housing loan customers? You can have different departments taking care of housing loan, one department taking care of insurance and stuff like that. And that's possible because that's a huge customer segment, and they need very specialized attention services. They need very specific product design, and they need the kind of support, documentation, follow up, feedback. So each customer category, because there's so many and they're having a huge potential, you want one separate department for each customer type that can take care of their needs, that can serve them better, and that can generate revenues for the company. So departmentalization can be based on customers, customer categories. And then the next departmentalization is based on regions. I know they're giving the example of US here, North and South and Midwest and East. So you don't have to just focus on US markets. Suppose you're operating in Americas, you might say, my company operates globally. My organization is a multinational company, a truly global or transnational company. So in that case, you're operating more than one region. So you can say every region perhaps is managed separately. So I can give you the example of Unilever. So when they operate in countries like India, they call them as Hindustan Unilever, because the operations are so big, so massive. Though Unilever is a global company, every region is managed separately because each geographic region is huge in terms of volume, in terms of maybe contextualization, customization, specific packaging. They have their own strategies in each country, sometimes in each region. Suppose if Procter and Gamble is operating in Middle East, or Nestle is operating in the Middle East. So obviously they want to make sure they understand the culture, the material that they use for their marketing, for their promotion. Everything is made customized to the Middle East population, to the Middle East culture, and being sensitive to those kind of customers basically. So you want to manage those departmentalization, or you're trying to create that kind of categories of work or categories of your business based on the regions that you're serving. And the last form of departmentalization is based on processes. So you might say, Testing is a process, so you have a separate department for testing. Another, when once you hear the word testing, I think testing is not just necessary in companies that do manufacturing, that are controlling certain, say, chemical processes. Testing is done by even software companies, companies that are doing coding and stuff, that are providing back-end operations for other companies. So you do testing, and testing tools are there even in the IT field itself. So testing is a process, and you can have departments that are dedicated for testing. Say payments. Suppose your organization has plenty of transactions every day, and payments is a massive task that you do. You might have a department that simply takes care of all payment transactions, basically. So departmentalization can be based on functional categories, based on product categories, based on type of customers that you're serving, based on the regions or countries that you're operating in, or the kind of processes that are in place in your company. You can create departments and have somebody manage that, each of those departments, with several layers of employees who do different kinds of tasks and activities. So here is an example that you have of an organization structure. How does a typical organization structure look like? Here is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. You might have a president and a couple of executive vice presidents, and then you have several vice presidents, and you have each region having a regional head, and then each region separately has many district heads. So obviously the region 2 has been expanded here. You have district A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and obviously you have moved from vice president. This particular one has been expanded here. The same thing can happen for the first vice president. The same thing can be done for the second, third, and the fifth one. So this is a typical organization structure. Again, how do you want to categorize? Say, would you want just region 1 manager, region 2 manager, or you want to go marketing manager, finance manager, production manager, quality control manager? How do you want to do it? Is it just regional manager 1, regional head 2, regional head for Asia Pacific, regional head for Middle East and North Africa, regional head for Europe operations, regional head for the Americas? I mean, then again, you can break it down from regional head to different functions: finance, marketing, HR, under each region. And under each of those, you can again break it down into, whatever activities you want to do. So how you organize your work purely depends on what kind of businesses you're operating with, and it also simply depends on how you're integrating structure and technology. How do you integrate structure and the style of management that you have, the leadership styles, and the complexity of your operations? So these decisions are very important. How you organize your work purely depends on your organization, understanding your operations, understanding your customers and the markets that you operate in. And so that's an extremely important thing, because this is how you get work organized. Who does what? Who's reporting to whom? What does each department do? What are the objectives or tasks or goals that we are trying to achieve as departments or as teams under each of these individuals? So basically, when we set planning process, when we set goals, and when we have strategies, who does what? How does, where do we get the directions from? Who allocates resources and support for accomplishing those goals? Who actually listens to our feedback? Who is ready to take reports? Who is ready to make those corrective decisions? So basically, when you're answering these questions, you need to put an organization structure in place. I'm just trying to tell you, whether it's a small organization, a medium enterprise, or a large company, you need an organization structure. School of Management, for example, where I work with, has a very clearly defined organization structure. Okay, yeah, and then we come to the discussion on line and staff. Now, line function, when you're directly reporting to your boss, say director of operations is reporting to the executive director. So that's a clear chain of command that you're following. That's a line authority. So wherever director of operations is working, he's directly having to report to the executive director. Unit 1 manager, unit 2 manager have to report to the director of operations. These are line managers, because they have a responsibility of reporting directly to their manager, to their superior or supervisor. And then you have operations guy reporting to the unit manager one, another operations guy, reporting directly to unit manager two. But that doesn't mean that they are not interacting with other directors. Say HR guy is playing the role of a staff advisory role even to the director of operations. See, director of operations is not reporting to the director of HR, but the director of HR will do everything to support the operations. So the director of HR is not reporting to this guy, but he's playing the advisory role. He's giving support. He advises, he supports. So that's why this dotted line, which is the staff authority. The same is the case with purchasing. So the director of purchasing, when you say purchasing of raw material, because the director of purchasing the raw material is an integral aspect of how you make sure that your operations are continuous, that you don't have disruptions in your manufacturing. So obviously, the director of purchasing is playing an advisory role to the operations and other directors. They've just put other directors. That can easily happen. The same is the case here. At this lowest level, HR is playing an advisory role for operations guy, purchasing manager is playing an important role in support of operations. So this is what we get. The dotted line is showing staff. What the staff authority does is advise, support, counsel, and kind of synergize the work. But direct responsibility is given by that dock line, the continuous line, which is what we call as line authority. So the line function is different, advisory staff authority is different. So I could be reporting to my boss, the dean, that's a line authority. But then I can also be an advisor to other program directors, for example. I'm the MBA program director. I could be giving advice to the bachelor's BSBA program director. I'm just a staff authority there because we belong to the same category, but I can advise them. I can give, say, advice to the EMBA program director, executive MBA program director. They're all program directors like me, but we can always talk. We can make sure that we are doing work that's coordinated, that we work together and we achieve the result of synergy. And that's possible because we're also playing the role of staff authority. But whom am I reporting to directly? I'll report to the dean. So that's a line authority. When I talk to other people at the same level, but we all try and help each other, that's a staff authority. So that's a dotted line. But the dot continuous line is straight to my boss. So obviously you can play with the organization structure in ways that are helpful for the company, basically. That's where we come to the boss, unity of command. See, initially, it used to always be the case that we should have one boss. Because if I have two bosses or three bosses, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. And they might give me conflicting directions. I might be, doing stuff which I'm not 100% sure because I'm taking directions from more than one boss. But that used to be the case. But today, if you look at how work has been organized, we're doing several things. Say for accreditation, I'm reporting to somebody. For teaching, I'm reporting to somebody. For say intellectual contributions and research, I'm reporting to someone else. Say for institutional activity in support of the university, I'm reporting to some other committee. I might be doing so many things towards so many individuals because you become multi-skilled and technology makes it easier, and you're working on several committees, you're reporting to several people. It's no longer the case that you have one boss. You might begin your career with one boss because you're still learning and you might not have the experience. But as you grow up the organizational hierarchy, I think you understand the organizational hierarchy. If you look at this, you might start here, but after 3 years, you might be here. After, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 15 years, you might be here. And after 25 years, you might be here. And towards when you have 30 years of experience, you could be possibly here. So you're climbing up the organizational hierarchy. Guys, that's what is important. As long as you're performing, you're getting the skills, you're updating your knowledge set, and you're actually creating competencies, you're getting some credentials and certification, you have accomplishments to back your whatever your resume, you're climbing up and climbing up. So choose a company that you have opportunities to grow, in the organizational hierarchy. You don't want to stay here forever. You don't want to be stuck here. You want to go here and you want to go here, or maybe you want to retire here, so that you have a good package, you have recognition, you feel that sense of fulfillment, self-actualization, realizing your potential. You have your say retirement plans and your end of service and return. Yeah, no, everything is taken care of because you've reached here. So you always want to grow. So look at a company where the growth opportunities are quick and rapid. You should learn, you should get the experience, and you should be able to climb, go up and up. So whatever I'm talking today is not just for companies. Organization structure is relevant for you and relevant for me because we all want to grow up. Okay? We don't want to be staying in the same place. So same is the case. You could be here, you want to reach there. So one boss used to be there, but now you do several things. You're reporting to several bosses in their own capacity. It's because you want to be multi-skilled. You want to bring all your skill sets to use. You want recognition in a broad spectrum of activities. And that's what you should do. I cannot just be a teacher all my life. At some point of time, I want to be an administrator. At some point of time, I have to be a mentor. At some point of time, I need to be a decision maker. I get higher responsibility, and that's what is growth. So you might not, you might start with one boss, but you will not always be with one boss today. That used to be the case before. You just wanted to keep one boss, keep it simple, nobody has confusion. Somebody, one individual gives you directions. One individual is the person that you're reporting and going back to. But no longer that is the case. You have several people you're working with at your own level, some of them at an administrative level, at an institutional level, at the corporate level, maybe some another boss at the business level, some boss at the divisional level. You might have several bosses, dear. Okay. Yeah, we spoke about the next element in organization structure, which is authority and power. So both are important. The authority gives you that sense of, right, of giving directions, of telling somebody to do certain things. So it is actually because of your legitimate position that you have within the company, and it depends. The higher level job has more authority. I have some authority, but then if I became a director of a program like right now I am, I get a little bit more authority. And if I'm director of accreditation maintenance, which I currently hold, I get a little bit more of authority. Authority doesn't, it's not a bad thing, but you should be capable of using that authority for organizational goals, for the larger benefit of your team and for your company. And if I'm the chair of quality assurance committee right now, which I am, I get a little bit more of authority. When I was the assistant dean in Abu Dhabi, I had plenty of authority. So authority means it comes with a position, and it also means that you have greater responsibility, greater accountability. Uh, to whom much is given, much is demanded. So when there is a lot of authority vested in you, you got to make sure you use your authority for the right purposes, and you will definitely be held more accountable than the others because you have the authority. So, as an assistant dean in Abu Dhabi campus, I was responsible for ensuring that we have the accreditation of the local ministry in the United Arab Emirates and also towards the AACSB accreditation. Here, I was the director of accreditation maintenance. I have the authority to take decisions, but I'm also accountable to see that we have the proper documentation, that all our teams are well prepared when the accreditation team comes, and which happened in January of 2020. And in April, we had a formal announcement that all your programs, including the program that you're doing right now, Bachelor in Business Administration and the MBA programs across all concentration majors, we have AACSB accreditation for the next 5 years. So this is an accreditation extension or maintenance that we call. So obviously, authority is the power vested in you to take decisions, to direct actions of your team and individuals in ways that are productive for the company itself and which actually move organizations or departments or divisions towards organizational goals. Power, an individual's ability to influence decisions. See, for example, my dean has the power. When I say power, it's not just the authority that he has in the position of the dean, but the level of information that he has, the extent of knowledge he has, the expertise that he has. So these make somebody very powerful. Knowledge is a source of power. Information is a source of power. Expertise is a source of power. He's connected in the whole of Northeast. He's connected with other deans. He also, is connected with the Dean's Business Council, it's called NEBDA, Northeastern Business Deans Council. So obviously, he wields a lot of power because he's connected, he's expert, he's experienced, he has the information, he has the position. So his power comes from different sources. So that's what is his ability to influence outcomes and decisions. By the way, if you did not know, Dean Jess Baronico is the dean, and it'll not be a bad idea to just get in touch with him if you have the opportunity. And we all always have every semester meet the dean and then the ice cream with the dean and stuff like that. Sadly, because of the pandemic, that is also virtual. But knowing the dean gives you a lot of perspective. All the great things that the School of Management does, the Tempos, technology, experiential education, the marketplace, the international marketplace itself. P is the professional enrichment. O is career oriented, and S is the student advancement. We call it the School of Management Tempos, and the triple platforms of excellence, all experiential education, professional enrichment, student advancement opportunity. These are plenty of innovative, impactful, engaging kind of experiences that the School of Management has created. So when you talk to somebody like the dean, or when you're talking to other people who own these platforms of excellence, you begin to realize how much of work and how many opportunities are there for students to actually grab. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. People in power have an ability to influence decisions of other individuals, of other teams. Okay, this is a very interesting picture that you might want to look at. See, at the center of this little cone that you have, the center, the spine of this cone is where the power is there. The cone itself is based on the kind of functions: production function, HR function, finance function, accounting function, marketing function. You start here when you start your job, and there is also research and development and other functions. So basically, you start at the lower level. As your organization develops and you have a chance to gain experience, you climb the organization. Right? That's why it's in a form of a cone. No, you don't have too many CEOs. You have one CEO at the top. You have some of the top management people, the president, the executive vice president, and the other vice presidents, they're here. And then you have plenty of department directors, or program directors, or divisional department heads or regional heads. They're all here. And then you have other employees and supervisors and workers and salespeople. They're all here. So you join at a lower level, you climb the organization as you gain experience, and you prove your worth, you prove your credentials. But if you look at the center, that's where the power is. There are individuals who are very powerful. I might be here at starting level, but I'm powerful because I'm an expert. I have information. I'm close to the CEO. I know the CEO. I talk to him. I have access to him, informal access to him. So even if I'm here, I might be at the center of power. So guys, a bit of advice: it's just not just the position that you have, which is authority. Try to have the power because you have access to information, access to expertise, access to certain skills that are extremely important. Or maybe individuals who are powerful as well, referent power. Or you have the ability to give rewards, or you have the ability to punish people. I mean, coercive power, reward power, expert power, so information power, so all kinds of legitimate power, which is positional power. So that basically gives you power. I spoke about the dean. I said he's powerful because he's so good at so many things. He's connected. He has the network, and he also has the position. So he has many things. He can reward you. He can punish you if he wants. So he's got a lot of power. And if I know the dean, I also become powerful. Even if I'm at the middle level, I might become powerful because I know the dean. He really trusts my ability. So that can be possible. I'm not saying I have it, but that could be possible. So where you want to be in the organization, you want to be at the center, you will grow like that. But if you're here, it might take a little bit while to get there. But if you're at the center, that means you're powerful and you have a faster ascent to the top. You will actually climb faster. So this is a very interesting, diagram which I thought will interest you as students. Okay, from where do we get power? We can get power because we are able to, punish people, or we can instill some kind of fear in them. I'm not a big fan of that kind of power. Reward power, I think I'm very happy to have this kind of power. See, as a professor, I have the power to distribute a good grade to you, distribute the kind of recognition that you deserve. You, as students, do a lot of work, assignments, exams, and class participation. There's plenty of areas where you need to talk, and then you need to post stuff on Canvas. You're having discussion boards. You do so many good things. So I have this power to distribute good grades to you, something that you value. And that's why I have some sense of power. Legitimate power, you all address me professor, you address me doctor, because you say, oh, this person has this legitimate position. It's a formal hierarchy. He's our professor. He has the skill, he has the credentials, he's been qualified, he's been hired for a specific purpose. He brings with him a lot of expertise. I'm an expert in certain field. That gives me some sense of power. I have special skills, I think I have, so that gives me some power. I hold a position, that gives me some sense of power. I'm close to certain people in the organization. They all understand how important I am. That's called referent power. Because I know the president, I know the provost, I know the dean, perhaps, and they know how good I am. So that gives me power. That's called referent power because the person that I know. So these are possible sources of power. Okay. Then we can go up. Yeah, I spoke about the span of control. So I was actually explaining to you how many employees can I control? How many employees should be there under my team, under my supervision? That purely is dependent on my experience and the experience and capability and the complexity of the task that my subordinates or my team members are doing. So basically, if my employee experience in training, more they have, larger span. Suppose all my team members are very experienced, they have they're very good at what they do. I can have 10 people, I can control them. So my span of control can be 10 because each of those 10 members know what is expected of them. They know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. They have the credentials, they have the skill, they have the maturity, and they're motivated. So I can control 10 such people. But if I have employees or team members who are not so capable, who are not so willing, who are not so motivated, and who need to be given directions all the time, I cannot have 10 people under my control. Such people whom I have to give them guidance every minute, every second, I'm happy dealing with only 3. So my span of control becomes smaller. Similarity of tasks. Suppose I have 10 people doing the same work, I can easily control 10. But if I have 5 people doing 5 different kinds of work, so there's no similarity. I cannot handle 10 such people. I'm okay dealing with only 5 because they do several things which are very different. So more similarity, larger span, not much similarities, smaller span. Complexity of those tasks itself. If the tasks are very complex, they're evolving, they're changing continuously, I think that the span has to be smaller. Otherwise, it's so difficult to control and monitor what's happening. Then I also spoke about the other element of organization structure, which is the amount of centralization versus decentralization. I was giving you the example of me being the assistant dean in Abu Dhabi campus, where I got some power to take decisions. Actually, a lot of power. My dean was so trusting. He had confidence in my ability and my integrity itself. He gave me all the power. He never actually got into the way I operated as an assistant dean and how our team was operating at Abu Dhabi campus, because he believed in decentralization. He's a big, advocate of servant leadership. So he would say, I trust you and I trust our team members. I know we are a family of professional friends. He called us a family. So he was very decentralized because he gave us the power to take decisions. He gave the lower level manager, which is me, to actually make decisions. That's decentralized. But if he actually did, he said, no, Prabhakar, I'll take all decisions on your behalf. I don't trust you and you're not good. I mean, that could be a classical example of centralization, which did not happen, which is not true. We have a very decentralized kind of structure in the School of Management. It's very flexible and it's very trusting. It's purely based on servant leadership, a lot of teamwork, committees, and plenty of independence, a lot of participation, several opportunities of voicing your opinion, and your voice, your ideas and opinions are really considered, and they're taken seriously and they're actioned upon. So we have a very decentralized organization and we are very happy with that. So you want to make sure which company you are joining. You don't want to have somebody else taking all your decisions. You're not going to like it. There's no wriggle space. You're not going to have any freedom to take your own decisions. You'll be suffocated for that elbow space basically. So you want organizations that give you that kind of space to work with. That's called what we call as decentralized organizational structures. It's an important element of organization structures. I spoke about that. How much can you standardize jobs? When you go to lower level jobs, you can completely define them. So they're high on formalization. But when you go up in the organizational hierarchy, you cannot standardize jobs. You cannot clearly define everything that's required. So that's formalization. Okay, we finished off the first objective where we is considering the six elements of an organization structure. I think I explained them very much in detail. And now we go off to the second learning objective for today, which is identify the factors that actually, make us choose between a mechanistic structure or model or an organic model of organizational design. There are two basically broad categories of organization structure. One is the mechanistic structure, and the other is an organic structure, or you can call it a mechanistic model and an organic model of organizational design. So, what are the factors that will help? It's not trying to say that one is better over the other. It is simply trying to say you could choose between the two. Well, what factors will you consider when you make that kind of choice? You have to be sure how you assess yourself, your organization, the technology that you use, the kind of environment that you're able to deal with. All these factors will let you decide if you want to have a more organic structure versus a more mechanistic structure. So this is when you're trying to understand what's the difference. Mechanistic structures are very rigid, and that means they're not very flexible. Fixed duties, that means formalization is high. A lot of rules, again, formalization is high. Formalized communication channels, that means you are not supposed to bypass any channels of communication. If you're reporting to somebody, you got to report to that somebody. You cannot be talking to someone else. It's very centralized decision making authority. So you have no freedom to take your own decisions. You cannot pick and choose what you want as a strategic approach in achieving certain goals or KPIs. So it's a very centralized organization structure basically, and tall structures. That means you have many layers: CEO, the executive vice presidents, regional heads, divisional managers, department heads, and then supervisors, then senior workers, and then the junior level workers, interns. How many layers? Each is a layer. So it's a very tall structure. So if you start here, you climb slowly up and up and up and up and up, and before you'll take 25, 30 years to reach here. So it's basically a very tall structure, okay? Such an organization structure which is rigid, not very flexible, highly formalized in terms of how you define jobs, a lot of rules, clear-cut channels, and very formalized. Decision-making power is vested with only certain individuals, certain positions, and it has many layers in the organization. Such an organization is called as mechanistic structure. Certain organizations work well with mechanistic structure. Suppose you're doing production. You're producing something that is simple, clearly defined. It doesn't have to change. Suppose I'm manufacturing something as simple as a mouse, the one which you use for your computers. If I'm manufacturing something like this, when it's standardized, you're not changing the design, not changing the material, you're not customizing it for every customer. It's the same product. I mean, if you're doing something like that, you can follow a mechanistic structure, proper control, you know whom to report, you do the repetitive tasks, you exactly have clear channels of communication, strong controls, and you work with the least amount of resources. you're very efficient, you have least amount of wastage, and you produce as high quality as you can and as many number of units as possible, and use your plant capacity completely. So I think for something simple and not very creative and extremely standardized kind of production, in terms of product specifications, I think mechanistic structures are perfect. But if you're dealing with something that's very creative, which requires a lot of collaboration within the company, across with your suppliers, maybe sometimes you need to talk to your partners, you're designing new stuff, adaptability duties, I mean, adaptable duties. So you're looking at stuff that you need to always keep changing because you're the nature of work, the kind of customers you deal with, the type of products or services that you're offering. You cannot have a lot of rules. You have to have organizations which are extremely flexible. So you need a lot of space for your employees to have their own unique approaches. So there's plenty of scope for informal communication. So you could talk to anybody. I think the easiest example that I can give here for a very organic structure, I'm not going to say it's 100% organic. I'll just put it in the chat itself. 3M as a company, I think that's a great company where you can say, they are completely organic structures. The 3M company is a classical example. A decentralized decision authority, plenty of employees have a lot of freedom to take their own strategic approach for achieving those KPIs. They're very flat. That means there are mentors, there are several teams that are organized to work on specific product innovation ideas. See, 3M, the company that I'm speaking of, 3M as a company, they have about 100,000 plus patents. So they're always innovating and creating new products. How is that possible? 100,000 patents. If you look at 3M's product categories, you will see 3M has, maybe I can actually show it to you once the class is over. I'll just pull that up across the website. If you look at the number of products, say for adhesives, they have some hundreds of adhesive products. If you talk about automobiles, they have hundreds of automobile related products. If you talk about, say, plumbing and carpentry and household stuff, tools, each of those categories have hundreds of products available. So the 3M level of innovation happens because they're working in cross-functional teams, and hundreds of teams are working, and there's mentors and team members, and the learning is so organic, so much of flexibility. It's not rigid at all. And 3M actually supports them with time and resources to work on these kind of new product development till the point that they can commercially produce it and start selling and make revenue for the company. And 3M is a classical example of very organic. I think probably even I can safely say Google, the parent company Alphabet, could fit into an organic company because they're very flexible. The kind of flexibility they give their employees is extreme. 3M, I mean 3M and Google as well. They take in ideas seriously. They get a lot of participation. They have several ways of involving employees in ways that they're always creative. They keep the creative juices of their employees flowing all the time. So that's the definition, and they're definitely flatter. They don't have so many levels as mechanistic structure. These structures are called as organic. So if you have a simple strategy, like I was explaining, if you're making the mouse for computers, and then you can have a simple structure. If you have a very you know flexible kind of strategy for producing a lot of products, innovation is the key. More complex structures or organic structures can work. Organic, less than 2,000 employees can be. I'm not a big fan of this particular slide. I don't think organic structures are limited to the number of employees. Okay, they have it there, so we'll keep it there. If it's a large company manufacturing a standardized product, mechanistic structures are better. So again, technology versus structure. So if you're creating, say, Boeing, for example, manufactured the Boeing 737 and 747, and they figured out they had these models of their aircraft, they had a lot of technical issues, but because they're they have that flexibility. They have this learning organization that you're involving several stakeholders within the company and from external sources, and Boeing could actually learn faster, and share tacit knowledge, convert tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge. And then they came back with, I think, if I remember correctly, the Boeing 757 and the 758, and those were perhaps the best launches that Boeing ever had. Error-free launches, extremely successful launches of their aircraft, because technology is the amount of technology that goes into manufacturing an aircraft is immense, and the safety requirements are very stringent. I mean, you cannot simply compromise on any of those safety measures. So to me, Boeing requires a lot of organic structuring of their work. I mean, they're taking feedback, they're working back and forth across departments, and then they're involving plenty of stakeholders to redesign and then launch a product which doesn't have errors and which can be extremely successful. So integrating structure and technology, very important. So if Alphabet and Google, which I'm giving examples of being an organic structure, look at Google and Alphabet's number of acquisitions. They have acquired hundreds and hundreds of smart companies across the globe. Literally, they have one acquisition every week on an average. So why do they acquire so many companies? Because they're extremely flexible. They're continuously looking at opportunities to innovate, and then they can scale up all these acquired companies. They can scale them up and launch their applications, launch their businesses across the globe. That's because of how Google has created its own organization structure. And they're an innovation driven company. They're a tech based company. They've gone into cloud computing. They've gone into augmented reality. They've gone into every possible thing that you can imagine, and they're so successful, including their hardware, say the Chromebook and say the Pixel phones. They're doing extremely well, and they don't stop innovating. They're literally in everything that you can imagine. And that means there's plenty of flexibility, there's plenty of innovativeness, there's plenty of wriggle space for decision making, for choosing strategic approaches for different teams that work on several projects. Environment and structure. If you have a very stable environment, mechanistic structure is great because it's clearly defined. You do the same work, do it more efficiently, cut down the cost, cut down the wastage. So mechanistic structures are perfect. But if you're dealing with something that's rapidly changing and evolving, I think there's plenty of requirement that you need to have flexible structures, which are pretty much organic structures. We go off to learning objective 3. Now we learning objective 1 was pretty much on the elements of organizational structures, the 6 elements we discussed. Learning objective 2 was discussion on how are we going to go towards organic structures or mechanistic structures. That's what we discussed here. We're saying the size, the models are these. The strategy will determine the structure. If it's a simple strategy, we can take a simple structure. If it's an elaborate strategy, we go for complex structures. If it is size, I'm not a big fan of that. Today, you can manage large size organizations, organically, but okay, we'll take it for the argument's sake. And technology. If you're very technology driven, very innovation driven, organic structures. If you're simple, you do the same technology, you produce the same product. You don't have to, customize anything, change specifications. You don't redesign something. You can go with mechanistic structures. If you're dealing with environments which are extremely stable, predictable, you can go mechanistic. If you're dealing with something that requires adaptation, that kind of flexibility, and you're dealing with dynamic environments, you go with organic structures. So we go off to learning objectives third for today's class. And this is where we're comparing and contrasting traditional organizational designs versus contemporary organizational designs. So I can actually talk about simple structure versus functional structure and the divisional structure. This is how a simple structure looks. So you basically have the top management and perhaps few, in this case, they put just a couple of departments. So it's fast, it's flexible, it's not expensive to maintain, clear accountability. But if the organization grows, you cannot simply have two departments because you might have more activity, more operations, more regions, more product lines. You might have more departmentalizations. So that's a weakness for a simple structure. Then you go to functional structure, where you have finance, marketing, production, quality control, HR, IT, whatever you want to speak of. So that's what we call as a functional structure, where you're having these functions: HR, marketing, production, and the IT or whatever. So what is advantage? It's cost saving because of specialization. You're getting economies of scale, minimum duplication because we're categorizing employees under each of those functions. Employees are grouped with others who have similar tasks, who have similar set of skills. So there's plenty of cost saving. There's no duplication of work in a functional structure. What could be a disadvantage? You might have functional goals, and perhaps you're losing the overall sight of what the organization must achieve. So we have competition between departments, and we are losing the big picture. We actually are short-sighted. We don't understand organizational mission, vision, and organizational goals. We start working in silos. We're so completely rigid and fixated with our own goals as a department, and that could become an easy disadvantage. Now then you have divisional structure. Now you might say for example, General Electric is a company. You might have different divisions. Suppose General Electric has a division in medical equipment. General Electric would have a division on aircraft engines. GE also has a division, business when I say oil and gas. So you might the advantage is you will actually are focused on those products and services. So whatever you're doing for oil and gas business, you know what your oil and gas business is. You know what kind of requirements and regulatory framework is. You know the overall macro environmental variables. You're also aware of customers and their requirements. So basically you were able to completely customize your operations towards addressing these stakeholders and environmental pressures. So that's the advantage of divisional structure. But sometimes it might happen that you're actually, consuming more resources that could be better utilized if you did not have so many divisions. That could happen, not necessarily it has to happen. That's a possibility of a divisional structure, and General Electric is a good example of that. I think I've spoken about functional structure, where you can group activities which are very similar, like accounting department, finance activities under the finance department, marketing, the four P's which I spoke about: product, price, place, and promotion under marketing department. Similarly, you could go HR department, recruitment, selection, training, compensation, benefits, payroll, all that under HR. So you can actually, categorize them based on similarity and then the specialties that are there. Division, you understand different businesses are classified as different divisions, and each division has its own structure. Team structure, this is a good one. Now if you look at say HP, and if you look at other organizations, plenty of organizations, they have team structures, including 3M, the example that we are talking today. 3M is a classical example of team structures. So any innovation that they want to pursue, one team is there. You have mentor and other team members, and team members uh, are amazing because they bring in complementary skills. They're good in several things. They come from different areas of expertise. One may be from a physicist, one could be a biologist, another could be a chemical engineer, or somebody could be an accountant or manager. So they bring in different perspectives when they're working on a new product idea. So that's how 3M does it. If you go to 3M website, you have great videos which showcase how 3M brings in people from different areas of expertise that you could normally not imagine. They bring them together to work on a single team that is having a great product idea or in an innovation in a particular product line. So that's about team structures, because they bring in complementary skills, they have diversified thought process, they think outside the box, they're faster, they're very motivated, they're focused, they share responsibilities and accountabilities. They share leadership responsibilities as well. So team structures are great. They're building blocks of any organization. Then you have what we also call in management as matrix and project structures. This is a very interesting way of organizing work for a company. If you look at the blue boxes here. A company might be having alpha project, one of the project name. They could be operating in beta project, gamma project, and omega project. So a company is executing and implementing four different projects. Each of those projects requires somebody in design engineering, a specialist in manufacturing, a specialist in contract administration, a specialist who knows and who can actually implement purchasing activities, specialist in accounting, specialist in HR. So obviously these, I mean, when I say design engineering, this is a little team. And manufacturing could be a team. Contract administration could be team, purchasing could be a team, accounting could be a couple or three or four people, HR could be a couple of people as well. So that those are little teams that are there. But these teams that you find under different colors here, they're not working on one project, they're working on four projects. So they actually are working on Project Alpha. They're also working simultaneously on Project Beta. The same people are working for Project Gamma. And the same set of people are also working on Project Omega. So these could be in same places, the same or different countries, different regions. That's how it's organized. You have one centralized way of looking at all the departments, and you have different projects that can happen simultaneously, and they're working across, and they know how to allocate work, and they know how to coordinate between those projects. And that's why it's called a matrix organization, because you're combining functions here and the projects here, and now you have a matrix. So this is what organizations can do to optimally utilize their expertise in these functional areas across several projects. Something could be small, something could be a startup, something could be strengthening a project, something could be an expansion project. You could work on several projects together. This is a smart way of organizing work. Boundaryless organization, that's a great word. We spoke about so many structures and how work has to be organized, how it has to be defined. In boundaryless organization, look at software companies. I know of Indian companies in the software industry who do not have a physical office location. They might be having, several people working from different cities across different time zones, and they all need is a computing machine and knowledge of how to use certain software platforms or skill sets, which really help them work towards servicing their clients and coming up with coding and coming up with software solutions which are very specific to the client requirements. So boundaryless organizations across time zones, across multiple locations, and they're very very flexible. They can be small. They don't have to have administrative expenses, physical locations. So you're overcoming plenty of issues. See, in India, basically because of the pandemic, everything went from home, everything went online. And would you believe it, after everything went online, people are working more because your boss is giving you work which keeps you continuously working. Because you're at home, you're working late night, you're working early morning, you're working afternoons, evenings, every time. And you have work to take home on weekends as well. And the companies are saving money because they don't have to pay rents for offices and administration expenses, food and beverages and tea expenses and coffee and all that kind of stuff. No. So there's plenty of saving and more work for employees. Boundaryless. Learning objective, the last one, discuss design challenges. What kind of challenges do we have when we consider organizational structures today? And that's, how do we keep employees connected? See, for example, right now, because of the pandemic and we are all on Zoom, how do you keep everybody engaged? How do you keep everybody motivated? How do you make sure that you're coordinating work? Technology is great, but sometimes you should know how to use the technology. Or is everyone trained? Is everybody interested? Is everybody motivated? Do we have the same kind of attitude towards working online? So these are challenges that any company can have. I think we face similar situations in education business as well. How do we keep our students engaged? How do I make sure that my students are listening to today's class? How do I know that you're engaged? How do I know you're participating? And especially if you're not switching on your video, if you're not talking, how would I make sure that you're actually understanding what I'm saying? So there are plenty of challenges managing global structures. If you're operating like all these multinational companies, say you Procter and Gamble, Unilever, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, you name it, IBM, you name these companies, including Samsung, Apple, or all these companies like Tesla or General Motors, Toyota, or Kia Motors, you say Tencent, Alibaba, all these global companies that you're speaking about. How do Bilibili? I've heard of this company called Bilibili, extremely innovative company in China. So you have plenty of these companies which are operating in global, environments. What kind of structure will help them? And with technology, with the type of demands that each region requires, the type of customers that you're serving, and the regulatory differences between countries, maybe the kind of tariffs and kind of issues, political issues that you have between countries, and those are all big issues. Building a learning organization. Peter Senji, in his book called Fifth Discipline, he speaks about creating a learning organization. Peter Senji's book, The Fifth Discipline, speaks about you know systems thinking, that every organization is a system, and every organization has subsystems, and all the subsystems are interconnected and interrelated, and therefore you got to realize what happens in one department has an impact, a ripple impact on other departments, because we're all interconnected. That is systems thinking. You cannot think that you're operating independent of other departments. You cannot operate in silos, basically. So, just doing in certain departments well, and if you're not struggling in other departments, you're not going to do well. You have to do well across all departments, across all businesses, because that's systems thinking. And then he speaks about, that's the first factor in his book called The Fifth Discipline. He speaks about, first one is the systems thinking. The second one is personal mastery. Peter Senji talks about personal mastery. You got to have skills and competences and always update those skills. I need to learn new ways of doing things. I need to keep updated with the use of technology, for example. I need to continue to do research, and I need to have a sense of personal mastery so that I become relevant. I can actually contribute in meaningful ways. So Peter Senji talks about the second thing called as personal mastery, which is a very important thing for every learning organization. And the third thing Peter Senji talks about under learning organization is mental models. So we are all conditioned to thinking in specific ways. It's important that we break those patterns which are debilitating. It's important to create patterns of thinking which are positive, which are empowering. So the mental models, you need to work with mental models across your employees, across departments, to create the positive kind of impact that you want to create. And that's a very key thing for creating a building organization, I mean, learning organization. So Peter Senji speaks about mental models. Then he also talks about shared vision. A learning organization is one where everybody's collective aspirations are set free. Vision doesn't belong only to the top management. Vision is shared across every employee, across all departments, across all locations. Oftentimes I remember our dean saying, "We are one school," and then every time he said, "We are one school," he's trying to say, even if we are operating in Vancouver or in Abu Dhabi or in China or in New York, we're one school. So basically, he's trying to tell us we have one collective aspiration. We share values. We share our vision and mission for the school itself. So that's what Peter Senji talks about, shared, vision, basically. And then, of course, towards the end, Peter Senji also speaks about team learning. Now, learning, usually you think you learn individually, but team learning is extremely effective because teams bring in a lot of diversity in ideas, out of the box thinking, and different kinds of cultural perspectives, especially if you're cross cultural teams and cross functional teams. So you bring to the table different cultural perspectives, you bring to the table very complementary skills, and therefore team learning is an extremely innovative way of doing things. And classical examples, 3M does that, HP does that, plenty of companies do what we call as team learning. So Peter Senji spoke about systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning. And so learning organizations are like that. You need to understand what is a learning organization. You need to measure the kind of impact that you want to create because of a learning organization. And you want to make sure that you're creating opportunities of acquiring new knowledge, sharing that kind of knowledge, and making sure that your employees are applying that knowledge to get deeper insights or to develop new products or innovations. That's what is a learning organization. And designing flexible work environments, arrangements itself, like flexible work hours, job sharing opportunities, virtual workspaces, all those kind of things. So yeah, here is learning organization, what I was just describing: shared vision and collaboration, information sharing, and creating new knowledge. That's an important thing. You want boundaryless organizations, teams, team learning that I was speaking about. And then you want to have that sense of community, strong relationship. You need a culture that is supportive, and it's very caring. It's built on trust. Here is the reference at the bottom. You see it here: the fifth discipline, the art and practice of a learning organization, by Peter Senji. So this is what I was referring to, the fifth discipline. So he said that the learning organization is a combination of all these things put together. And of course, flexible work arrangements. You have telecommuting. That's what is happening right now. You're all in your own comfort of your own homes, and we're still talking and we're still interacting. We're able to deliver this lecture. We're able to take feedback and work together on projects and stuff like that. Compressed work week. You might no longer want to work 5 days or a week or a 6 day a week, because you work more number of hours during fewer days. So it can happen. Flex time. Google does this. There's no specific 9 to 4 or 10 to 5 kind of job. Extremely flexible. Job sharing. You could have, instead of firing your employees because you have problems right now, you might say, okay, let two people do the job of one. You'll take 50% of the salary. We'll keep all employees, but you share your work, and then that means you don't take your full pay. And once we come back to normalcy, and we're resilient, more resilient in business terms, you will do your full job. You'll take your full salary. That's possible. Don't fire people. You could go for job sharing. And contingent workers, maybe you'll stop hiring right now, and but when business gets better, when your demand gets better, when your sales get stronger, you might actually take in more workers for supporting that kind of increase in sales and demand. So I think I'm done with today's class. So let me stop sharing, and I'm ready to take in questions.